All right, welcome to this week's episode of Courageous Leaders Changing the World. Super excited to have this week's guest back in the country long enough to do a podcast this time. Welcome, Khai Doan.
Thank you very much. Good to see you again.
So, name of the podcast is Courageous Leaders Changing the World. So the question we ask everyone is, what's the time that you've had to summon more courage than any other time throughout your life?
Does that have to be a single time?
You can start with a single time.
Okay. I think the first time that I really had to summon a lot of courage was when I was 20 years old, selling all my things and moving to the other side of the world, kind of not knowing anyone, not having like a plan B. That was like the first real time in my life that I had to summon like a lot of courage into the unknown.
Mm-hmm. What inspired that shift to move across the world?
At the time when I made the decision, it was because I wanted to travel and explore and, run into the wind. However, now it's been a long time of reflection since that moment, I guess, or since those moments. And if I peel back the layers, it was because I was like running away from a lot of the problems that I was dealing with back home in Australia.
What were some of the problems you were dealing with then at the time?
The biggest ones were, learning to navigate a really traumatic kind of childhood and separation between my mother and my father. They raised me in the best way that they knew how, but let's just say from a relationship point of view, they weren't the best for each other. And it put a lot of strain on the actual family unit. And eventually when it tore itself apart, I wasn't really able to handle it. My nervous system wasn't able to handle it and caused me to retreat and run away, but then use the story that I was traveling to find myself, as we all do.
Yeah, it's an interesting time. How old were you when you did that?
So I was 20 years old when I officially left, but the first kind of time that I would say I ran away was from the time I was about 17. Wasn't necessarily like physically running away, but that was when I was really beginning the journey of like numbing myself and my pain. And it started with a lot of like substance abuse and kind of just feeling like the life that I was surrounding myself with, or the environment that I was surrounding myself with, was just something that I wasn't like able to handle at that time. So every opportunity that I had from the ages of about 17 to 20, 21 years old was really spent trying to numb myself, partying, taking drugs, like just losing myself and losing my sense of reality, I guess. But I think it really stemmed pretty much during the entire experience of like the family unit beginning to crumble and me not being able to like handle it.
Yeah, it's interesting. Normally, 14 to 21, we start to develop our identity outside of our family unit, and it's interesting. We have a society where it's like, right, you're going to choose what you're doing for the rest of your life when you're like 17, when you haven't actually developed your identity outside of yourself, let alone started to develop your identity outside of your family unit, let alone develop your own identity, which happens 21 to 28. So most people, I think it's really good for people to actually do that gap year where they actually travel during that time frame, because they actually are learning who they are. Because most people get, midway through their life and they recognize, oh shit, now I've just repeated all the same patterns as my parents and just copied and pasted that from their past into the future. So when people actually go through that journey of actually, seeing the world differently, it starts to open things up for them. One of my mentors says, travel is to the soul what personal development is to the mind. It's like when you start to travel, you start to open up to see all of these different paradigms, and all of your brain rewires in what is it called? It's not Diverge. Bo Lotto, whatever book he has on neuroscience, he says that basically if you want to rewire your brain, the easiest way to do that is to travel because every single room reflects certain things back to you. And if you've been in a location for a long period of time or in a room for a long period of time, it mirrors back all your other identities. And when you go to somewhere new, who you've been starts to dissipate. That's why like travel becomes so powerful for people to be able to, find themselves.
Yeah.
What has been that journey for you of that dance between, traveling? You love to travel around the world. You've been on a season of traveling. What's been your relationship with that in terms of going through those different phases over the years?
Yeah, well, when I look back on like all of the times that I've traveled up until I would say November of last year, even though a big part of the traveling was inspired through like having other experiences and like, seeing different things and meeting different people and eating different food and doing all of the things that people love to do when they travel, I would say that up until probably November of last year, the majority of my traveling outside of, me getting married to my wife was like traveling where I was running away from something. And now when I'm traveling as of, November of last year, it's a very specific time and date, it's really started to move more towards that feeling of like traveling because I just really absolutely love it and there's no need to run away from anything at all. And it's taken 10 years of actually like traveling around the world and going to so many different places for me to come to a place now where I've just accepted that like I just really, really love traveling and I really love what it does for my soul. I really love the connections that it allows me to form, but also how it allows me to like step into like my personality outside of, what society kind of expects from you. And I think that I'm most myself when I'm moving about and kind of interacting with the world in, I guess, let's say, odd and different ways, going against the status quo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. What happened in November last year that changed it all then?
Well, Mr. Cody, for the first time in my life, I let it all go. Like the first time in my entire life, I actually let it all go. Specifically speaking, the need to be a successful business owner, the need to have lots of money, the need to be seen in a certain way, the need to, have my shit together, the need to fit into a specific kind of like mold, identity kind of frame that I had created for myself, or let's say my external environment molded me towards. I just let it all go. And it was the most liberating feeling I have had in my life.
What brought it on?
So 18 months prior, I had just let go of 9 team members in a period of like 1 week. I, formed a really, really close and tight-knit bond with my team. But I just felt like a deep sense of disconnection from the business that I was building. On paper, like I had everything, like literally had everything. But I just felt so trapped and I wasn't sure why. And so in June of 2023, I believe, I let go of the team. And then I felt like the identity that I had spent so much of my life trying to build kind of just shattered itself in a period of like a couple of weeks. And then for the next 12 to 18 months post that experience, I was trying to like piece back what was broken for a reason. And, I was trying lots of different things, running events, seminars, and trying to like just build this thing. But now the thing was built off like kind of like really murky and muddy kind of waters where every single like step that I was taking felt like my entire leg would get like trapped into the water, and then I'd lift it out and then another foot, and it just felt like a slog, like a really hard slog. But I wasn't able to let go. Like I wasn't able to let go, you know. And it got so bad that, you know, I kind of like numbed myself for 18 months post letting go of my team. And in November, I left my partner. She was in Italy caring for my mother-in-law, who's now passed, unfortunately. And I literally left her because I couldn't handle it. Like I literally just couldn't handle how I was feeling, and I needed to like find a way to let go of the feeling, essentially. So I moved to Koh Phangan, Thailand, by myself for 6 weeks. 4 weeks. And yeah, through that kind of 4-week experience, kind of going deeper inside myself, these little sort of things kind of triggered more and more letting go. And then one day I was on one of my friend's couches that I had met during my time over there, and I was having a conversation with her, and something happened in that conversation where I just, for the first time in a very, very long time, I felt like an overwhelming like sense of guilt, because I was talking about Jen. I was talking about how selfish I had been, and then this emotion started coming over me, and before too long I was on a scooter riding back to the place that I was staying. And during that scooter ride, I was literally just like begging, like literally begging while screaming into a helmet, you know, scooting down the highway for God to help me, because I couldn't do it anymore. Like I literally said to him, like, I can't do this anymore. I'll do anything that you ask of me. Please just take away the pain. And then after that, I stopped eating, funnily enough, for 5 days. Like I was just in my room, meditating, cleansing. And I ended up reaching out to a friend, and an opportunity kind of came from that. And that's kind of been what I've been focusing on over the last 10, 11 months. And yeah, I would say that now, in comparison to 11 months ago, or that moment on that scooter, kind of like wigging out and breaking down, I'm in probably one of the best positions that I've been in a very, very, very long time, if not ever.
Mm. How important do you think faith is within all that?
Oh, 100% everything to me. Like I would say that faith is probably the guiding force behind a lot of the decisions that I've made throughout my life. It's certainly allowed me to live a life which is much more trusting. I feel like good things tend to happen to me. You know, I hear a lot of stories about people that have really toxic relationships, or they've been through a lot of experiences where people have fucked them over, or, you know, done bad by them, and, you know, touch wood, that's never happened to me. And I feel like because I am so built around kind of like, I built my life around faith so much, I just have this sense of trust that everything's going to be okay. And it doesn't mean that things like don't get hard. I think that like the human experience is filled with like a lot of difficulty, but by having faith kind of in my corner by my side, it's allowed me to just learn to let go of how I think things should be more and more and more, to now being in a place where like everything's actually okay. Yeah.
And what would you say to someone if you saw that they're in a position like you're in, and they were holding on to control in their life, and they really just needed to be able to let go? What would you say to someone in that position?
Well, I can only speak from lived experience. And it's sometimes no matter what other people tell you to do, it's not actually the thing that you need to do. And the answers that you're looking for are not external. Like, I think, being in the industry that we're in, we tend to like idolize, let's say, external parties for having the answers for our liberation. And the problem with that kind of mentality in the personal development world is when we outsource our liberation externally, we take that power away from us. And a lot of the time, the pain that we're going through in our life has a seed planted within it, which has a lot of wisdom. But because we're trying to solve the situation and we're trying to like force upon, this situation that we're experiencing to no longer be there, and we're trying to fix it, we actually like take ourselves away from being able to find the answers that this specific situation or this experience that we're going through is actually trying to like help us with, or help us navigate, or help us transcend like to a, let's say, a new level. And so I feel like one thing that I have learned is that life is very, very seasonal. There are moments of like winter, there are moments of summer, there are moments of spring and autumn. And a lot of the time, the season that we're in is specifically designed by, let's say, a higher power to give us exactly what we need so that we can then, I guess, absorb the knowledge or the wisdom from the experience that we're journeying to then be able to help other people go through whatever it is that they're going through, and being able to provide like lived experience and lived feedback. But again, just because it's my feedback or your feedback, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's what that person needs to do. And I feel like sometimes many times actually, the only way for us to really get to the root of what might be getting in our way or the answers that we might be looking for is to, I know it sounds very cliche, to like let go, surrender, and look within, because the answers are generally there if we're willing to dig deep enough.
How does someone journey that? Because the journey, like that level of discernment, to be able to determine what is actually like their path, what is the thing for them versus what are they taking on from someone else without actually filtering it through themselves. How do they determine that discernment?
Well, again, coming back to my own lived experience, like I have spent the last like 10 years trying to find out the answers myself, and it's costs a lot of money. It's taken a lot of time. It's involved a lot of experiences with different therapies, from traditional therapies to alternative. And I think it's about consistently taking action and like moving forwards. A lot of the time we're sucked into this vortex of like living in this realm of like believing that there's time in the past and the future. And I feel like the reason why we struggle so much is because when our identity is attached to this experience that we've had, and it's, let's say, a viscerally very pleasant experience, a viscerally unpleasant experience, we end up latching onto this experience because it gives us a specific like sense of like safety or comfort. But being able to have tools available to us through mentors, through meditation, through breath work, through medicine, or whatever it is that you end up choosing as your kind of like your tool to help you like go deeper inside of yourself. Just being open and willing and open-minded to like try multiple different things, I feel like is the answer for you being able to like go deeper within. So I don't think it's like one thing. You know, for some people, it's like reading tarot cards. For some people, it's meditation. For some people, it's running. But I think there is something out there for everyone if they're willing to like look for it. And I feel like the problem with a lot of people is that they're afraid to like try lots of different things. They're afraid to step out of like that comfort zone. You know, a lot of people, they just think that the way that they're living is the way that is the only, let's say, way that they could be living, you know? And so they kind of accept that this is the life that they're living, but they don't really accept it because they're not happy and they're not like fulfilled. So yeah, I guess to answer your question in a less roundabout way, like try lots of different things. Like just don't stop learning, keep on growing, like keep on investing in yourself, keep on seeking for the answers that you're searching for.
Yeah, I love that. You know, so many people get stuck in the identity of being someone who's, you know, doing the work rather than actually showing up in the world differently. And that's part of the work. It's like, yeah, you do the internal work, but you got to do the outer work as well. So that you actually show up in the world differently so that you can actually start to create those changes. And when people have that identity of, oh, I'm spiritual or I'm doing the work or all of those things, becomes this new layer of masking. It becomes this spiritual bypassing to actually stop them actually getting the things that they say that they want. And, you know, the more that they start to step outside of that, to be able to actually try new things, do new things, start to step into courage, to be able to do the things that they've never done before, that's what opens them up so much more as well. Because as soon as you start to show up differently, like even if you're not fully on board with it, what happens? Like you start to take more steps when like anything that's in motion is more likely to stay in motion when you start to take that first step. And most people are too busy thinking about what they could do rather than actually doing it.
Yeah.
What do you see as one of the core blocks that plays out with that in the context of sales, with you obviously being a master of sales? What do you think are some of the core blocks with people shifting into the level of mastery they could have with that?
I think most people are dabblers. They're kind of interested.
Yeah.
You know, they talk about what they want, and the feeling of talking about what they want gives them a dopamine hit, makes them feel really good, without actually recognizing the sacrifice that comes with creating a life that you tell yourself that you want. And I think that, you know, I've reached a level in my life where like I'm very taken care of. I'm very blessed. Let's just say it could be a lot worse. And I think the only way that I've been able to create what I've been so blessed to create is because I've got a very, very all-in / erratically irrational personality where when I am into something, I'm like, I latch onto it. And I think for me to sit here and say that it wasn't driven by some deeper level of pain from like childhood would be like a lie. You know, some people are just in such a difficult situation from the way that they've been raised that their way of coping with the situation is either like, you know, being someone that's, let's say, at the bottom of the barrel of society, or the opposite end of the spectrum where they use that trauma and it like propels them towards creating amazing things. You hear it time and time again where people were raised in very, very unfortunate kind of circumstances, but those unfortunate circumstances created their level of hunger for something like different and something better. And so, yeah, I think a lot of people, they tell themselves that they want a certain thing, but the thing that they tell themselves that they want is borrowed from somewhere else. And it's not their true north or their North Star or their true goal, the true door that they're supposed to actually be walking along. And one thing that I've realized now being on the journey is that, like, from a financial point, from a career point, from kind of like a relationship point, from many, many kind of areas in my life, like I'm actually very, very, very content, happy, satisfied, fulfilled. And I realize now that even if you were to like give me more money, like it doesn't actually do anything for me. But what really fulfills me is doing work that I'm really proud of and being able to actually help people get out of their own way and like live life the way that they tell themselves that they're wanting to live. Helping people get to that point where they're ready to draw the line in the sand. That for me lights me up each and every single day. Because, you know, we're always selling something. Everyone is a salesperson. Everyone is selling someone on some idea, whether it be, you know, your wife selling you on the idea of you having to go to a friend's house in order to hang out with other friends and blah, blah, blah. Or, you know, you selling yourself on the idea of like taking care of your family, or, you know, a concept that is not yet manifest, making it manifest and having other people buy into the concept. Like we're constantly selling ideas all of the time. However, most people are selling themselves on ideas that are further creating a deeper level of disconnection and limitation than they are selling themselves on the idea of like why what they are wanting to create is actually like possible for them. And so, yeah, I think the biggest separation between like someone that is actually like doing really well in sales, in their career, in business, and someone that is like constantly struggling, it really just comes back down to a decision. It's kind of like sometimes you have to be disgusted in the way that you look in the mirror before you decide to like actually do something about taking care of your health. And a lot of people, they get to the point where they're like disgusted in their situation before they make a change. And unfortunately, like I've been one of those people, and even though it has been really, 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 really hard, at the same time, it's allowed me to like have so many lived experiences in my life just by having this attitude of like, one, when I was a child, like constantly trying to run away. And then two, like constantly wanting to live a different life to everybody else. And so I think it just stems on like a personal thing. Some people, you know, I once learned from Jim Rohn in one of his audio cassettes. And it was something along the lines of like, he used to wonder why some people succeeded and some people failed. And then he came to the conclusion that some people are just going to be successful and some people are just going to fail. And there's no need to like justify, because we're all on our own path. You know, like some people are just going to do whatever it takes. Some people are going to stay up late. Some people are going to do the dials. Some people are going to, you know, have the uncomfortable conversations. Some people are going to think big. Sometimes some people are going to think of the opportunities that are available. And then there are other people that are just constantly looking at what could go wrong. And that is obviously going to shape your reality and the way that you end up getting results in whichever endeavor you decide to pursue.
So you gave a lot of examples of like people selling, or like always selling in different contexts. What about when they're asking for money? Because that's like a different dimension where people kind of struggle. People, you know, they can do the sales on something that they perceive is not important, but then they won't do it in business, or they won't have the conversation with a team member that they need to. So when the stakes are higher, they struggle the most. What would you say to someone in improving their sales skills in those situations?
Yeah. Well, the beautiful thing about sales as like an actual professional skill is it's exactly that. It's a skill. And the skill is broken up into the actual skill of selling itself and the mindset of the actual salesperson themselves. And a lot of people have been taught that asking for money is like really seedy, or they've been taught that asking for money is unethical, when in actuality, they're dealing in commerce each and every single day of their life, from the time they wake up all the way until the time they go to sleep. They're just unaware of it. And so I guess the framework that I have really sort of come to accept inside my own mind is, if you are on the other end of a call with someone else, and they are the right fit, it is in their best interests to make a decision to change, and it is in your best interest to help facilitate the transformation for them to make the decision to change. And the outcome of that is, yes, you're going to make money. But the deeper outcome of that is they're going to make so many changes in all of the areas in their life that will make a big impact in the bigger picture of what they're trying to create. And so I believe that it's like a duty of a business owner to sell their products and to sell it ethically and to sell it with care and to sell it with passion and to sell it with confidence and to sell it knowing that the person on the other end, if they are purchasing because they're ready to make a change.
What would you say are some of the things that either you now perceive as unethical or just what's been your journey with what that kind of line is throughout, the different roles that you've had in different companies based on, in every company that you go into, there's going to be a different kind of line of where that ethical line is of what's acceptable. What's been your journey with that line evolving over a period of time?
Well, I will go back to when I first started. I was this young 21, 22-year-old kid, had traveled through Europe for 2 years and then decided that I want to get into sales properly. I ended up meeting a mentor who at the time, at that period of time, was a very, very well-known business coach. And he taught me how to sell a $17,600 product. And it was very, very high pressure, very, very hypey, very aggressive, and very manipulative. And we did very well. The business, by the time I left that company, was doing around 1.5 million per month in sales. When I first opened the account, it was probably doing like around 100K. So, we did a 10x growth in a period of 6 months. It was pretty ridiculous. But we were selling people into a coaching program to be coaches when they weren't even coaches, And I feel like to put someone that has no skill, brand new to the industry, no experience, into a program to build a business when they've got no experience or skills to do so, I feel like that's unethical. And another way of kind of like seeing whether or not someone is like dealing with commerce unethically is how they actually make the prospect feel on the other end of the sales call. A lot of the time, the salesperson will bully the prospect into buying and will guilt trip the prospect into buying. And I feel like the way that business is dealt with nowadays, if you're dealing with clients that are very, very reactive like that, you're going to have high refund rate, you're going to have high disputes, you're going to have a difficult conversation later when the client is trying to pull out. And even if you do ethical commerce, it's still going to happen. But the difference between it happening all of the time and it happening sometimes, I feel like, is how you actually handle the call by who you are as a person and the skills that you learn, from whoever's training you in the actual art of selling itself. So to tie back to like the first question that you asked, which was something along the lines of, what determines someone being able to like really do this career very well versus like not, or build success versus not. It really comes back down to your level of care for the client. It really comes back down to how much potential you see in them, in what it is that they're trying to do. The type of selling that we do is we're in the online info product kind of coaching space, personal transformation, and, a space which is helping someone go from like the unseen to the scene. And so the way that you sell someone on that is very different than selling someone a fridge, you know, because when you're trying to help someone get out of their way and into a justification for let's say a product that might be way outside of what they perceived was their current budget or within their current realm of possibility. And you're able to help them transform in such a way that they will find a way to make it work no matter what. Those are the kind of home runs that make my job really fulfilling. Because when you have those types of people that hop on the calls and then they hop off, and then you talk to them in 6 months' time and they've completely changed their life around, or they're in a better relationship, or they're making more money, or they finally started their business, I feel like that compounds in interest. It's almost like good energy that compounds and stacks on top of each other. Whereas a lot of people, they sell with their own interest at heart, where they only care about the sale, and they don't handle the client that they're dealing with on the other end with a duty of care. And there are a lot of people like that. And they probably make a lot of sales. Maybe they make a lot of money. But I feel like the way money is made is much more important than the money being made itself, or created, or, transferred from one hand to the next.
Yeah.
And so I've been very fortunate that, since I first started learning unethical selling, I've been blessed to learn from very, very successful people how to sell ethically. And then in turn and through osmosis and through repetition and through really leveling up over the years, I've developed my own methodology that I feel like works very, very well, regardless of the coaching product or service that you sell. But it really stems from the duty of care that I feel for the clients that I speak with.
What would you say to someone who's got a foundational level of success, they've been doing their own selling, but they also recognize that it's kind of not their genius, and they're looking at having someone come into their business to be able to do the closing for them, and they're going through all those apprehensions in terms of well, I don't know how ethically they're going to do it. I don't know if they're going to go into pressure-based tactics. I don't know how how they're going to qualify people effectively. How do I know that the quality of people are going to come in is going to stay the same, rather than people going for commissions based on who's coming through? How would you have that conversation with someone?
Well, it really depends on kind of where they are at, whether or not I would even justify them outsourcing a salesperson at the very beginning. Typically speaking, when a business owner is doing, let's say, less than 20K per month, they can get away with continuing to close for themselves, but maybe outsourcing appointment setting. And I believe that if a business owner isn't consistently generating revenue on their own, if they outsource their sales to a company and their infrastructure of their business isn't set up for the business to make consistent sales anyways, they're going to struggle even if they have a world-class salesperson on the account. But on the note of being able to ensure that the person that you're bringing onto your account, if you are at that stage where you're ready to scale, is of the same values, has ethics, has morality, and actually has your client's best interest at heart, it really comes down to you and your screening process for how you actually interview people or potential candidates that are hopping on your account, right? Whether it be you as the founder managing them, or it be you outsourcing it to a sales agency. The most important thing that you need to really learn how to discern is whether or not the person that you're speaking with truly has your best interest at heart. Because if they have your best interest at heart, they're going to have the prospect's best interest at heart. And I think that that's just really, like I said at the very beginning, I've been very, very fortunate to mainly have good interactions with people, business owners in commerce throughout my entire career, I've never really been like fucked over or messed around in that regard. But I do understand that it happens quite a lot. And I feel like a lot of the time people are hiring or people are outsourcing and delegating, and the frequency that they're doing the actual activity from is that of lack, scarcity, fear, and a lot of the lower vibrational frequencies. And so this goes very deeply into like the esoterics of like, you know, reality creation. People think like sales is just like these things that you, like these words that you say and someone says yes or no, but it's so much more than that. I truly feel like if you want to know how to create personal development at a deep cellular lived experience level, being on the front lines of capitalism and learning how to close deals, there's no other experience like it because it will tell you a lot about yourself. And yeah, I truly believe that if you're in the right frequency, if you have the right product that's helping the right person and the vision is big enough, it's almost like the Avengers kind of forming themselves together. You'll just find your own Avengers and they'll kind of like form an alliance with you. Like what I've been able to create and the people that I've been able to meet, it's all happened kind of on accident. Like without even me really trying, but every single time I've like tried really hard, it's almost like gone against my favor. And so I guess to answer your question and to sum that question up properly, it's if you are looking for a salesperson and you are looking for a team, you have to look at which stage you are, what you can actually handle with from a capacity point of view to make it worthwhile for the setter or closer that's hopping onto your account. And then just having like a strong vetting process and also being connected with your intuition to see if you vibe with that person. If you feel like that person actually, you know, will vibe with the offer that you're selling, and then just giving it a go, because you're never going to know until you're on the other end. Like you're never going to know if it's going to work until you actually like give it a crack. But I'll definitely say there are levels of like, there are points in time in the model where it is the right time, and there are periods of time in the model where it is very much the wrong time and you should not do any sort of like outsourcing sales at all. Not yet.
Yeah, I agree. That's the biggest thing that most people get stuck in is they do the right strategies just at the wrong time. And it basically just kills their cash flow. Most people, especially at those earlier stages, are looking specifically at going, you know, I just need more leads or I just need more sales. So they look for, you know, a marketing person or a salesperson to be able to fill that gap, when the reality is it's more of a them gap than it is something outside of themselves, because they haven't got a proof of concept at that point to be able to actually grow it from there, where they can actually receive the support, which is, you know, a really important distinction. Most people try and outsource, which is outsourcing that power to the outside thing, rather than actually getting a team member in to actually support. Because when you're doing that from that place of, you know, sufficiency and abundance internally, then it actually enhances all of those things, and it's an entirely different experience, which is what you're talking about in terms of the importance of the energetic frequency of it.
100%.
What do you see? What do you feel is your medicine that you bring to the world of kind of both integrating the spiritual, esoteric pieces and the sales and systems pieces? Because it's like they're both your jam. What do you feel is your current representation of your medicine to bring to the world with those things?
Great question. I've been trying to figure this one out for the last 11 months, so maybe you can help me unpack this one. I feel like the way that I actually sell is very transformative and very unique, because I don't just focus on a process. I focus on the person, and I focus on them stepping in to the archetype or the identity or the avatar, kind of the skin that's going to help them get to where they want to go. And so many times on calls, I have clients literally cry to me around how much they want to change. It doesn't happen all the time, depending on the offer. But what I've very much been gifted with is the ability to really like see and feel the person that I'm speaking with and say the right thing beyond a process that I've learned. And so I feel like that's all stemmed from all of the challenges that I've had throughout my personal life. and being able to be someone that is very, very relatable in a professional commerce setting. And I think that sometimes you just got to get punched in the face like enough, and you need to go through your own journey of not only physically getting punched in the face, but also like emotionally, like spiritually, financially, and all of the other kind of ways that someone can get punched in the face before you really start putting you to the side and putting them in front. And I think that inherently is just a spiritual experience. It's kind of like being able to sacrifice your need for comfort because sales calls and having the tough conversation with someone is very, very hard. You're dealing with a lot of emotion, and these people on the other end, they're going to give you all sorts of objections. But the thing about those objections is most of those objections are lies, because prospects lie all the time. And it's up to you as the salesperson to really see that what they're actually journeying with and what they're telling you isn't actually what they mean. They mean something else. And so I think where you bridge the skill and the spirituality together, the spirituality comes when you start to recognize that really you're just like talking to a mirror of yourself. And then the skill is just like developed through like learning that humans work in patterns. The way that you handle I need to think about it is the exact same as, you know, you handle it like it's the same process you handle that objection with John is the same way you're going to handle it with Jill. But it's the nuance of how you handle it, which is going to determine on whether or not it moves John or it deters John, or whether it moves Jill or whether or not it deters Jill. But so many people give up after the first objection. And I think that is the reason why they don't get what they want in life. And what it really tells the person that's actually giving the objection is that they're not able to overcome that objection within themselves a lot of the time. You know, so like just as an example, if you're trying to convince someone to invest X amount of dollars into a service to help them create XYZ result, but you've never done the actual transformative work yourself. You've never invested in the mentor yourself. You've never actually had someone overcome the objection that you've given to them yourself. Then you're never going to feel the same level of authority as someone that's invested that sort of money into themselves and actually understands what's required in business, in relationships, in your health, in finances, or whatever have you, whatever the topic. You're never going to understand what's actually required to get to that next level. So you're just using words. But words are only like one part of the equation. Energy is the key. And I think that how I bridge the gap between like spirituality and sales and business and commerce is I actually help people recognize that business, commerce, and sales is a spiritual experience in its essence. The old age wisdom of spirituality, of sitting down in a cave and meditating, is a very, very, very difficult concept to live by when you have all of these other things externally in your environment that you need to take care of. So the next best thing is, in my opinion, to create a sovereign life by developing skills that are needed in the marketplace so that you are independent from the system. But in order to develop those skills and in order to actually like live in those skills and create what you want, one, you need to be willing to go to the depths of what is very, very uncomfortable, which is challenging people on their bullshit and then calling them out. And then two, you need to be willing to step into the embodiment of what you're trying to get them to do. So, yeah, some people just aren't willing to do that. Some people aren't willing to go that far. And that's okay. There's a reason why there are leaders and there's a reason why there are followers. And that's okay. But it really just comes back down to when you say you want this thing and you use your words and they come out of your mouth, do you mean what you say? And if you observe the way that someone lives, you'll know very quickly whether or not they mean what they say. People tell me all of the time on my calls, Khai, I would love to travel the world. I would love to reach financial freedom. I would love to make X amount of dollars per month so that I could provide this and that, this and that. But if you actually look at their behaviors and you look at the patterns of behavior that they have been playing out, they are more addicted to the desire of what they want than living in the desire of the wish fulfilled itself. And that's why the rich get poorer, the poor get poorer, right? Sorry, the rich get richer and the poor get poorer. It's not because like the rich like are better than the poorer. They just have access to a different identity set. And they're willing to sacrifice more. They're willing to learn different skills. They're willing to have those uncomfortable conversations. They're willing to take the bigger risk. And the payoff is much greater in many, 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 many regards. But then the second best payoff, if you're not cut out for a business owner, you know, to be a traditional business owner where you're the face of everything, is to be an honorable salesperson, you know, because it's the one skill where your income isn't actually capped if you're on a good account.
Love it. What was your experience going through our sales process? Obviously, you're a master salesperson. What was your experience when you went through our sales process?
Well, you didn't really sell me, did you? You kind of did your the sales process. Yeah. I knew that I needed to make dramatic change, and I actually went against a lot of the things that I believe, which was, if you're going to make a decision, make it on the first call, blah, blah, blah. But with you, it was slightly different because I didn't make it on the first call and you didn't try to push me to make it on the first call. You just allowed me to make my decision in the way that I needed to make it. And it was because it was like a very sizable investment in comparison to anything that I'd ever done before. And so I just had to go through a process where before I even spoke to you for the first time, I like talked to your clients. And yeah, you kind of just didn't really even take me through a process. You just, or maybe you did, I just didn't know because I wasn't aware. But it was very, very, very sleazeless. It was just like, you want to do this? Cool. This is how you do it. Great. Done. And, I think had you sold me in any other way than that, I probably wouldn't have done it, But yeah, I also think that there are different styles of sales cycles or different levels of consciousness and for different stages where people are actually at.
Yeah.
If you're selling like a 5K product, it's very different to selling a 20, 30, 40, 50K product.
Definitely.
The process of due diligence from a 5K transaction to a 20, 30, 40, $50,000 transaction is just different. Because normally when you're speaking to someone that is making a $30,000 purchase or a $50,000 purchase, there's much more at stake, for one, just because it's a much larger financial commitment. But two, the buyer that you're speaking with is much more sophisticated. They know what it is that you're doing. And so most people aren't actually selling those types of offers where, they've got a $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 offer. It's a very, very kind of like specific business coach or kind of like program that that one would be selling to be able to justify a $30,000 to $50,000 price point. And I think at that level of being able to sell those types of price points, you have to really, really handle it with care and knowing that if they don't sign up on the first call, that's okay. They're probably going to sign up later down the track. So yeah, it's just a process thing as well. Like it's a different process from a 5 to 10K product to a 10K plus product.
Yeah. Yeah, it's an entirely different person, and the way that people buy is entirely different when it's, as you said, $5,000 and then again over $10,000 and then again over $25,000. It's an entirely different person and process. And I think most people, we're in a. I was thinking about this the other day. We're in an industry where it's like charge your worth, but it's like, well, no, your worth is separate to your offers. And an offer is based on the right value exchange for that offer for that person. Your worth has got nothing to do with it.
Yeah.
If you start to put that in there, then it's just going to mean that one or two things is going to happen. You're either going to judge yourself because you're not charging your worth, or you're going to increase your worth. You're going to increase what you charge so much that it doesn't actually match the marketplace. And people then can't do it because you're just constantly putting your prices up, which actually means that the level of scalability doesn't occur because the number of people that can pay that price for that thing just gets smaller and smaller over a period of time, rather than actually seeing it as this is the program for this kind of person that actually feels this thing. So that then we can actually create a process for the person that's going to be perfect for, so that you can actually then grow and scale that offer rather than kind of put your worth in between it all, which is one of the things that I see that stuffs a lot of people up in the industry. And how do you then create a sales process around that based on the person, based on the offer, based on the values that you have of the business owner? How do you create all of that actually being congruent by seeing it as the ecosystem that it is? Because then as you allow that ecosystem to thrive, then that's going to allow your business ecosystem to thrive and actually grow from there. How important is it, I think this is probably one of the last questions, how important is it for you to see an ecosystem thrive, especially when, sales is very much the lifeblood of a business. Like if you can improve that, that's going to improve a lot of things. But how important is it to be able to see sales as an entire system?
It's very important, but as the market has evolved, I would say it's not the most important function in the business anymore.
What do you mean by that?
So when I first started sales, most of the offers online were free report opt-in pages.
Yep.
However, as the industry that we're in has grown, buyer sophistication has increased and skepticism is at an all-time high, more than ever before.
Yeah.
And so I would actually say branding, more than ever before, is, I dare say 10 times more important than like a strong sales process.
Yeah.
But it is very, very important now to have a brand if you're wanting to scale. Because you can have the most efficient sales process in the world, but if you do not have a good founder or a good brand that is like backing the actual product, then the salesperson does a lot of the heavy lifting. And that is scalable up to a certain point, but it generally involves burnout.
Yeah.
The best kind of offers that I've been on are offers where I hop on the call. They know the founder, they know the offer, they know what they're about to purchase. Maybe sometimes they even know the rough price point. And then my job is simply to connect the dots between where they are and where they want to be and to see if we're the right fit to help them get there. And if they're on the call, generally speaking, 9 times out of 10, they're going to be the right fit because there's a specific vetting process that is required before they hop on a call with a closer, right? But to answer your question, I don't want to say that it is no longer as important as it used to be, because being a salesperson is going to be something that I don't believe AI will ever replace. As long as humans still feel emotions, there needs to be a middle person between the product or the person being interested in the product and the person actually purchasing the product. Because when you're purchasing a product that's $5, $10, $15, $20, $30,000, there's a lot of doubt that comes into the equation that if not dealt with by either the salesperson with the prospect or the prospect in their pre-call kind of process, they're going to hop off the call and they're never going to hear, you're never going to hear from them again. It's very rare that a founder can have an offer on their webpage and it's like, here's my product, 50 grand. And someone just be like, oh yeah, here's 50 grand. That's just not going to happen. Unless you're like the top OG dogs like Tony Robbins and like the best coaches in the world and your brand is so humongous that, you don't really need a crazy sales process, to get someone to purchase, and a lot of people can just purchase through the website. Most people aren't there yet. Most people, I dare say, probably won't ever get there. And so in today's age, I see now more than ever before the importance of having a really strong brand, a really, really sophisticated marketing engine, and a good sales process, and also a good product. Like, you really need a good product that actually helps people, because there's a lot of like product pushes that just don't serve the marketplace at all. And, you know, they end up going belly up eventually, or something happens and they get taken down or whatever. But yeah, like, you need systems in all areas. And on that point, a lot of people are trying to build everything themselves, but that is not their area of expertise. Like, I'm not a systems guy. So I have someone that's into systems that helps me on my journey. I'm inherently a leadership and sales guy. Like, I really love human to human interaction. When it comes to spreadsheets and data, yeah, I have some experience in that, but it's not something that lights me up. And so it really ties back into the thing of, you got to find what really lights you up. Like, you have to find really what lights you up. And for me, it's always like, I've just always known I'm a talker, and I've always loved the interaction between human to human. And in commerce, I've just been so blessed to be able to find a function within a business where I'm able to talk and make a tremendous amount of income from that ability.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's the perfect thing to wrap up on. What's the best way for people to get in contact with you?
Just through Instagram, khaidoan.co, khaidoan.co. On Instagram, find me on Facebook as well. Reach out, say hey.
Epic. Thanks. This has been fun. Cheers.
Thank you, Cody.